Moving on to the women, because I feel like this is where we saw a little bit more of a surprise. I can't not put Tia on the top. Argue with me in the comments, please, but I can't do it. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Amanda, and today we're gonna talk a little bit about the CrossFit quarterfinals, the team workouts that we've seen, what that can mean for the individuals, and then I wanna take a look at the top 25 media poll that Barbell Spin just put out. But before I get to all of that, I'm just gonna start this right off by asking you all to subscribe. I forget to do that all the time. I don't do any sponsored content on this channel, so you won't see any commercials like that. The only commercials or sponsorship type things you're gonna see is me endorsing myself and asking you to subscribe. So if you're not subscribed, please do that. The percentage of people who watch my videos compared to the percentage of people that subscribe is really bad. So if you could subscribe, I'd appreciate it. Now let's get into the rest of this video. Let's talk first about the team quarterfinals, which is happening right now, and the workouts have all been released. And I think it does give us a little bit of indication as to what we're going to see in the individual quarterfinals. Now, I know that the individual quarterfinals have been very different from the team quarterfinal workouts the last 2 years. The first year we had quarterfinals, they were eerily similar, ridiculously similar. So much so that it felt like people who were doing both teams and individuals were doing exactly the same workouts twice. They rectified that mistake, and they have been more different the last 2 years. I do anticipate them being different this year as well, because again, we will likely see a bunch of athletes doing both of those. So I think that CrossFit is going to want to make them more different workouts compared to that first year and what we saw there. There were lots of complaints when they were almost the same. But I do think it gives us some indications of what we're going to see in individual quarterfinals. And I think the biggest takeaway we're seeing is that these are more simplified workouts. Does that mean that we're not going to see the best athletes making it to semifinals? I don't think so. I think that the cream will rise to the top like we've seen in the past. We saw that in a lot of different iterations of how CrossFit does things. 2019 CrossFit Games comes to mind. Yes, there were some really good athletes that were cut before that final 10. It was only 10 at the end. So yes, there were some fantastic athletes cut, but the people who ended up on the podium, the people who ended up at the top of the podium both those years are exactly the people we thought that would be there, and they were there despite the craziness of that CrossFit season and that CrossFit Games. I think that's going to translate here. We're going to see that the best people aren't going to be impacted even if these are simplified workouts. And I've talked about this before in previous videos, but Dave Castro has said on his channel where he does his weekend review that these workouts are going to be able to be started by most people. That if you're making quarterfinals, you're going to at least be able to begin these workouts.
I will say this, if you qualify for the quarterfinals this year, you will probably be able to do the quarterfinals and most elements of them.
So knowing that he thinks that most people will be able to do it, I think that these simplified quarterfinal workouts that we're seeing for the teams is going to be similar to what we see for the individuals. I don't think the workout's going to be the same, but I do think that that theme will carry over from the team workouts. Let's take a little bit of a look at the team workouts. I'd love to hear in the comments what you think about them. They are very different, I feel, than what we saw last year. We saw some very heavy barbells. These are not nearly as heavy. We don't have a max lift. We didn't have a max lift in the open, and we don't have a max lift in quarterfinals. So we're not gonna see a max lift until at least semifinals, maybe till the games. We don't know. I would assume we're gonna see a max lift or complex at semis, but I probably would have assumed we were gonna see a max lift or complex between the open and quarterfinals, and we're not, which is interesting because I do think that there have been times that people have said that CrossFit is a little bit heavily weighted towards the weightlifting aspect of CrossFit. And if that's something that Dave Castro, that CrossFit, that other leadership within CrossFit wants to get a little bit away from, not that it's not important, but you would see people who are extremely good lifters hitting that part or that workout out of the park, and that making such a significant difference on the leaderboard and just very much heavily benefiting the strong people, where other elements like gymnastics, although very important, did not have the same weight, no pun intended, but kind of intended, the same weight as weightlifting. Like if you are fantastic at ring muscle-ups, you don't really see many times that we're doing max ring muscle-ups for time where that's gonna really benefit you in the same way as having an insane clean and jerk or snatch is gonna benefit you when those 1 rep maxes come up. So maybe we're seeing a move away from that. I think it's too early to predict trends, but no max lift. Also, no floor plans. I think that can also be expected for individuals, especially when we've heard stuff about how Dave and Boz are talking about how you can do these things in a class setting. If you're doing them in a class setting, floor plans are very difficult to execute and take up a lot of time. I don't think we're gonna see those. We're not seeing them in teams. I would be surprised. I mean, not shocked, but I would expect that we're going to see that trend continue through the teams. So looking at the workout, I think most people are saying the first workout is the best test in the sense that it feels very much like a lot of what we've seen in the past from quarterfinals, and it feels challenging and very clear that the best teams are going to do the best at this workout. We're not going to see people who are just specialists or maybe just not as trained at some of the more challenging, complex movements doing well here because it has those. So that first workout is alternating pairs. Every 2 minutes, complete 5 rounds of 10 synchrolateral burpees over the bar, 10 front squats, fairly moderate to heavy weight here, and then max muscle ups. Max muscle ups, we really haven't seen a complex gymnastics movement like that. So this will be a separator, and max, that's a really key word, and you only have 2 minutes. So 10 synchrolateral burpees over the bar, easy in the 10 minutes. These 10 front squats this weight. For the teams that should make it to semis, easy in 2 minutes to finish both of those. It's gonna be those max muscle ups that is the big separator here. And I think that's what you wanna see from quarterfinals workouts. That's what you wanna see to find out who should make it to the semifinals. So I think this is a fairly well-programmed workout to get the right people to the right place. Now, going into these next ones, I do think that the best are still gonna do the best. And we've seen that with so many of these more simple workouts that we've had. We still see a lot of the same elite names tending to come up towards the top in the open this year. And other times we've had more simple workouts. So I don't think it's gonna be as concerning for those top teams. I think those teams are all gonna make it. I think it's gonna lead to those bottom teams, the ones that just get into semifinals. I think it's going to really impact those teams towards possibly teams that just aren't as strong as we've seen in years past, especially when it comes to the weights, because the weights aren't crazy heavy here. So the second workout, 50, 30, 20 reps for time, alternating dumbbell snatches, everyone synchronized, which will slow those down quite a bit. Toes to bars synchronized in pairs, the 50 and 70 pound dumbbell. Maybe some people who are newer to CrossFit or aren't as strong see that as very heavy, but quarterfinals last year, we saw the 50 and 70 pound dumbbells for the individuals. This is a weight that most competitive athletes who would be competing for semifinals, well, actually all competitive athletes who are competing for semifinals are proficient with. In fact, most of those athletes are probably never touching the standard 35, 50 dumbbell. It's just too light. Moving on to workout 3, you've got male, male, female, female pairs, and they will do part 1, the males, part 2, the females. They'll be doing a 500-meter row, 50 handstand push-ups, 50 synchro wall ball shots. The handstand push-ups can be switched as needed. For part 2, pair 2, the women, they start with those wall balls, handstand push-ups, 500-meter row. It's just reversed. What I think is a little bit interesting about this workout is it's just kipping handstand push-ups. It honestly seems very accessible for semifinals. You would think, or I would think, that it might get more difficult as it went. Like, say it was 20 kipping handstand push-ups, 20 strict, 20 wall facing or something like that, to make it a little bit more strength, technique, a little bit more of a separator there. But just traditional handstand push-ups. The wall ball is back to the 9-foot height for women here. We saw it go up to 10 foot in one of the quarterfinals. I believe that was 2 years ago, 2022. And now it appears it is back to the 9 foot for the women that we more often expect. Although at a quarterfinals level, I think it would be fine to keep it at 10. I don't like wall balls. I don't want to do it to a 10-foot target, but I would understand that at this level. And finally, in female-male pairs, as many reps as possible in 15 minutes, 30 deadlifts for the females, 30 deadlifts for the males, 30 shoulder to overhead, 30 shoulder to overhead. Barbells are 205 for women on the deadlift, 315 for men, 125 on the shoulder to overhead for women, 185 on the shoulder to overhead for men. While that is heavy-ish for your average class, I don't feel like that's super heavy. It's still a fairly moderate load. Now, it's 15 minutes. That is a long time to move that load. That's what's going to be the big separator. Again, everyone who's made it to quarterfinals on a team, I believe, will be able to start that workout. Those weights, 205 and 315, should be movable for all of those athletes. I almost have no doubt about that. It will be the shoulder to overhead and people's shoulder stamina that's going to make a big difference. But 125 for women, I think most women can move that pretty well. I've not done this workout, so I don't know the level of fatigue you end up getting into by the end of that. I imagine it's quite significant, but I feel like the weights could have been bumped just a touch to feel a little bit more like something that a lot of people would struggle to do, like something to strive for, to push people to really focus on getting better at these things, where I feel like 125, 185 is something that's a little bit, it's accessible. Good or bad thing, I don't know yet. I still feel like we have to see the full test to make an assessment and see how it plays out. Because maybe it is heavy enough, maybe 15 minutes, but you have the rest. That's what I think, because you're switching pairs, I think the rest is time for people to recover and makes it, again, more doable. So I do, like I said at the beginning, think this isn't going to change who we see near the top of the leaderboard. I think the best are still going to be the best, those teams we expect to be there. Invictus, who just today actually had an update, Jessie Smith will be taking Devin Kim's place. She has an injury, so I believe Devin will become the alternate, and Jessie Smith, who was on one of their not top team, one of their less good teams, will be moving up to their top team. So that's interesting. But Invictus, they'll make it. Mayhem teams, they'll make it. Like these names that we expect to see, I believe we will see. Noah Olsen's team this year, they'll be there. So I think it's going to really impact those bottom teams more. And if there's a bottom team who's like, we're really great at the things that appear in semifinals, the very heavy weights, the complex gymnastics for high volume, which you can have in this workout depending on how well you do on it, but a lot of volume gymnastics, those athletes may end up not doing as well if they're just not as cardiovascularly fit, which is gonna be the big thing here again. Your heart rate up high, more accessible. You don't have to slow down to lift a very heavy bar. Like we saw women have 185 bars last year in quarterfinals. That takes time. You gotta slow down to pick that up, 275 for men. But these weights, I feel like, you know, they're more accessible. This is gonna be a long video. Probably could have made this into 2, but Barbell Spin put out their media poll today, so I just wanna put that in here real quick too. And I do vote in this media poll. If you don't know that, it's a bunch of different people in the CrossFit media space, one of them being me. So let's get into the poll, and there is some big updates. So in first for the men, we have Ricky Garrard. He was first last time, stays in first. Jeff Adler is in second, and Roman Krennikov has moved down to third. And I would anticipate that has to do with open performances, what we saw from Jeff in the open announcement versus what we saw from Roman in the open announcement. So that I feel like makes sense. A lot of the men, there just wasn't a whole ton of change on the men's side. Coming in at 25th from not ranked, we have Bill Leahy. So that is a little bit of an update, and he's definitely someone I think that everyone should have their eyes on. Andrew Hiller has talked a lot about him, even done a video with him. So if you're interested in seeing more of that, you can head over to his channel after this. But Bill Leahy, definitely someone I think we can expect to be pushing for a game spot this year. And then when he makes it, if he makes it, when he makes it, we'll have to see how he does at the games, and could be the real deal. Moving on to the women, because I feel like this is where we saw a little bit more of a surprise. So in first, we don't have tia-Clair Toomey, which is shocking for a list that she's on. Like when she wasn't competing, not having her in first obviously makes a ton of sense. But having her in the field and not be listed as first, that, I didn't do that. In my poll, I have Tia as first, and I still feel like I'd keep Tia in first. I think people are readjusting based on the open, based on her wrist injury, but I imagine now that she knows how that's impacting the season, that she's making adjustments. And the open doesn't matter, so why risk it in a setting that doesn't matter? But you know what matters? Quarterfinals, because you got to get to semifinals. And it's a much, much smaller margin of error than the open. Top 25% for Tia. I mean, she qualified for quarters last year pregnant. So like this doesn't matter. But now things are going to start to matter. And I think she'll be resting the wrist, but I think she'll also be prepared to push the wrist if she needs to. Tape it up, do whatever she has to do to get through the workouts. And then semifinals isn't until the end of May. She talked about this initially in March, mid-March. So if she's been working on rehabbing that since then and doing what she can to mitigate the damage, I think by May, when we're talking about semifinals, she should be there. And I think even now, because quarterfinals is this year like a full month about from when the open ended for individuals and more than a month from when she announced her injury, I think she's gonna have it under control. So I wouldn't have knocked tia-Clair Toomey, but the media overall did knock her down to second. Not me though. My rankings first, still first. Let me know if you think something different, because I don't know, can't count her out. I know that Laura won at Rogue, I know, but Tia was like months postpartum. Like it's insane that she even did that. Insane to me that she did that quickly after having a baby. And she still was, you know, pushing Laura. She was still in the mix. She was still very much had the chance to win that. And now she's like gonna be more than a year postpartum by the time she's at the games. Like, I don't know, I think I can't not put Tia on the top. Argue with me in the comments, please, but I can't do it. Women definitely had a whole ton more shifting. And that might partially be because we had some people announce they were no longer competing. like Emma Carey, so that definitely will impact the rankings. So let's just go through a few that have had some fairly big shakeups. Olivia Kerstetter moved up 3 spots. Brooke Wells moved down 3, and I would imagine that's also because of her injury that she has, which is a shoulder injury that she has from falling on ice, sort of a weird accident, but definitely something to keep an eye on. I think that's likely worse than Tia's wrist, but I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. We'll see how they're rehabbing. Paige Semenza moved up 5 spots. Alyssa Fuliano also moved up 5. And then we had 4 people who were not ranked who are currently ranked. So we've got Danny Spiegel. I feel like this makes sense. She's a games athlete. She missed last year, but I think part of that had to do with some other things she was prioritizing. So I think it's fair to have her in the top 25, and very likely that we could see her back at the games. Emma McQuaid is now ranked. Annika Greer. Annika Greer is also ranked 24th. I definitely knew I wanted to move her into my rankings, and she had a fantastic open performance, coming in within the top 5 of the open in the world. That is very impressive. She's very young. She's missed the games for some odd reasons as a teen, as an individual, with the submission for a video that she missed. And I think that she's just knocking on the door, still super young, super fit, very strong. This is a strong athlete that won't really get to show her strength if we see very similar workouts for the individuals in quarterfinals. But I'm sure when she gets to semis and hopefully the games, she'll be able to show off that strength that she has. And then finally, in 25th, we have Manan Angonese, who is also not ranked and is now in the rankings. So if you want to see that full list of rankings, I will link Barbell Spin's post below in the description. You can check that out. Make sure if you enjoyed this video to give it a like. Again, subscribe if you're new here. I really appreciate that. It really helps me grow this channel and make more videos for all of you. CrossFit videos every week, 1 to 2 videos, depending on the time I have. But videos every week, more videos when there's a lot going on. Quarterfinals is coming up. I did qualify for individual quarterfinals. I finished the 90th percentile, so I plan to be doing those, posting videos about those. So if you're interested to see my workouts, my performance, I'll probably post the full things so you guys can get a look and some advice. Subscribe for those things. That could be something that might be worth checking out for some of you that are also doing them, now that we have 25% joining me there. So I appreciate you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. But first, we've got this sleepy boy over here. Do you want to come say hi to the camera? Oh, he's very tired. Hi. Want to say hi to the YouTube people, the YouTube viewers, our friends? Hi. Okay, bye. Bye.